What's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel for another 1/6 scale figure review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Hot Toys Miles G. Morales from Across the Spider-Verse, aka the Prowler. Now I want to give a big shout out to Jeremy Casa from Plastic Hero Collectibles for providing this figure for the purposes of this review. There will be a link in the description to his Facebook group and his Instagram page, which he just recently created. I highly recommend checking them both out, especially Instagram. He's trying to build up his Instagram page, so again, it'll be in the description at Plastic Hero Collectibles on Instagram. But yeah, without further ado, let's take a quick look at the packaging before we move on to the actual figure and everything that's inside the box. I will say, as I mentioned in my previous review for the Spider-Punk, I absolutely love this packaging. I think it looks incredible. The colors are really nice. They pop. It's got those metallic hits all over it. Just really nicely done, and some of my favorite packaging I've seen in quite a while. But now let's take the plastic clamshells out of the art box and let's see how it arrives to you when it lands on your doorstep. Of course, as always, I do remove the plastic off of everything just for the purposes of seeing everything clearly in the video. There will be plastic on all the important bits, including both of the head sculpts, so just keep that in mind. But as you can see, there's a fair amount of stuff here and quite a large clamshell, just like the Spider-Punk, because of all the stuff that he comes with. Before we move on, I do want to show you, just like all the other Across the Spider-Verse figures, you do get this cardboard backdrop unique to this particular figure. Obviously, this is kind of representing that cityscape from Miles G. Morales' particular universe. Also, it does come with these little word cards here, that famous phrase from the Prowler. I'm pretty sure in the film he says, "But you can call me the Prowler," like there's a bit of a pause and he says "you" twice. Maybe Hot Toys kind of shortened it just to make it look a little better when it's all attached to everything. I'm not sure about that. But now, without further ado, let's take the figure and all the accessories out of the art box and let's take a closer look at all of the details. So before we look at any of the accessories, I quickly pulled the Prowler out of the box because I was just way too excited to take a look at him, but man, is he looking freaking awesome. There's so many different details going on with this suit. As you look closely at it, you can really see there's so much going on. We'll get more in depth a little bit later, but just first impressions, this figure is so freaking sick, especially those little claws there that are actually posable, and you'll see that a bit later in the video. This set does only include 4 swap out hands, which I'm not mad at, only because this is basically a figure that you're buying for the Prowler look. So he does come with those 2 Prowler gauntlets that do have the posable fingers, so I can let that slide on this one because I'm not going to be using that personally anyway. In terms of the sculpting and everything, it is a softer design of the glove. Obviously, they're just supposed to be like purple leather gloves simulated in plastic. You can see the details aren't too crazy on them, but I won't be ever using these personally, but pretty cool if you want to put these on and kind of have them holding one of those Prowler gauntlets. If you purchase the special edition, you do get this bonus piece here that just clicks on the mask. This other piece is what you use to click onto the foot and or one of the Prowler gauntlets. Attaching the mask effect is pretty straightforward. There's just a little peg hole and then you just kind of line it up and peg it into the side of the mask. Attaching the effect piece to the foot is pretty interesting, but very easy. You take this little magnetic cylinder it includes and you just magnetize it there to that little piece in the bottom. And then you just equip this effect piece with the included peg in the box, and then you just peg that into the foot, and now you have an attached effect piece. And finally, if you would like to attach the effect to the Prowler gauntlets, you just use that little included clear plastic piece and it just clips on. I absolutely love the attention to detail with these little spray cans. If you listen closely, there's actually a bead inside. And also, if you feel so inclined, you can actually pop the top off and reveal the little sprayer on it, which is really, really cool. Of course, as per usual, we have another hexagonal style display base with that shiny bit on it. And when we look at the front, again, no metal nameplate, but that really cool Spider-Verse font. And I wish it said the Prowler, or if it came with an extra little sticker you can put over the front, but it does say Miles G. Morales, which I understand that is technically the name of the figure. But it looks pretty cool, but it does come with something even cooler that makes this display base special. And that piece I'm talking about is this little like purplish blue pipe here with these real metal chains on it, which is really cool. And as you get closer up, you can see the paint detail on this thing is really, really nice with all the speckling and everything. Once assembled though, having the Prowler hanging off of this, it looks pretty dang incredible, and it really isn't that big of a footprint, which I absolutely love because that's what I cannot stand about most of these diorama bases. And last but certainly not least, we do have our Miles G. Morales head sculpt. And honestly, guys, yet again, another home run from Hot Toys. What a fantastic likeness on the sculpt. The braids going down the back of the hair look really nicely sculpted and painted, as you could see. Just overall, some of the best animated sculpts that they've ever done over at Hot Toys. The eyes look fantastic. They don't look beady or anything. They look very, very good. And just like the previous figures, you do have the rolling eyeball system. You can see there's joysticks in there. However, this head is so small, you will have trouble sticking your finger in there, so you probably want to use that little PERS adjustment tool just to make sure you can get in there easier. And it is a bit of a pain because the space in between that collar is so small, but you can see I have the head sculpt installed on the body and it looks so freaking good. It literally looks like it was pulled straight out of the movie, which I absolutely love about this line. I think they just did such a great job at recreating these characters. But now let me throw the helmeted portrait back on the figure and let's take a closer look at the Miles G. Morales by Hot Toys. So here we are with Miles G. Morales, aka the Prowler, and taking a look at like a quick 360 of the figure, you could see it's a very small, dainty figure in comparison to like the Spider-Man 2099, for example, that Miguel O'Hara. It's a very slender, somewhat tall body, and I think he looks absolutely awesome. There's so many different little details and everything going on here throughout the body, so it makes it kind of hard to zoom in on everything at once because you got to look all around the figure to really capture everything. But as you can see, that helmeted portrait is really, really cool. I love that like painter's mask inspiration there, which makes sense because he is a tagger and he does come with those paint cans. Really, really love the design of that, and those eyes look awesome. Obviously, I showed you earlier, there's that peg hole where you attach that special edition bonus piece. This is not USB powered on the head, unfortunately. On the back for the gauntlets, it's USB powered, but unfortunately, they weren't able to kind of daisy chain those. So you can see the hair just pulls off and you insert the batteries there. Definitely a miss in my opinion. I wish they would have found a way to kind of daisy chain those together, but what are you gonna do? That's what we got, so we gotta work with what we got. In terms of the outfit, it is mostly cloth, but something I want to point out, you do have this like printed on suit material here. You can kind of see it wrinkles a little bit differently. It's certainly not a pleather. It's like that printed on design on the fabric. Will that crack or leave a crease over time from having the arms bent? Potentially. I don't know for sure, obviously, because we have to wait and see over time, but definitely just wanted to point that out. The details, as I mentioned, are just amazing on this outfit, though. The little hits of green, orange, this belt section with all the details on the belt there. That shirt, I didn't mention that earlier, but that looks really cool. I love the straps going across. Just a really unique design here. Speaking of the gauntlets, I mentioned earlier that these were posable. So as you can see, all of the fingers do bend, and they have really nice solid joints in them. So I definitely am not worried about them getting loose as long as you're careful with them. As I mentioned earlier, you can make these light up, and I'll show you that very shortly, but these are really nice looking. The hands do move, so they're very versatile. When you look at them at first glance, they look a bit clunky, but as you can see, everything kind of moves on this figure, which is really nice. The posability, again, is very nice on the gauntlets, and I also love, as I showed you earlier, that you can attach that effect piece to it. As we move down though to look at the lower half here, you can see so many different elements, the knee pads, all the different colors, these high socks. Unfortunately, yet again, we get some Jordans without the branding on them. You know how Hot Toys is. They don't like to play for that licensing, so that's a bit unfortunate. You guys did see earlier, though, you do have that magnetic piece in the foot to put that effect piece on. Pretty clever design there, in my opinion. If you would like to utilize that USB-C power function, you do pull off this back panel here. You are greeted with the switch, and as you turn the figure up, you can see that little USB-C port underneath there. As I mentioned earlier, with the included purple hands, you can remove that Prowler gauntlet and kind of have him holding that gauntlet like he does in the film. And I do have a USB-C cable ran to him now so you can see what the gauntlets look like. Once I flip the switch on, you could see him light up. There is a little purple sleeve underneath, as you saw in the previous clip. Make sure you pull that down. As you can see, when you pull it down, it will fully glow right there. But if you don't, it won't be fully lit. It'll be a little bit darker at the top. So just make sure you do that. But what a great looking effect. I just wish the top was USB-C powered as well. It is a bit unfortunate, though, that the helmet is not USB-C powered, because once you actually get it powered on with the batteries in it, you can see it's actually quite bright and looks really awesome. So definitely a bit of an L in my opinion. Now, I know the final thing everybody's curious about before we move on to the final posing segment of the video is the posability. At the shoulders, it is a tighter joint and it kind of moves the body. As you can see, the joint's so tight. That's not necessarily a bad thing, especially because they kind of encourage you to have him hanging from that pipe. that might be the reason that they did that. In terms of going forward with the joint, it is a bit limited because of that like plasticky screen printed material on the suit. So just keep that in mind. I could push it further, but this is not my personal copy, so I'm not going to do that. Another thing I want to point out, I mentioned earlier that screen printed material, but also you can hear it and you can kind of see it there. The elbow pads kind of lift up off of the Velcro as you pose it. I don't know if that's kind of by design. That was like the only way they could do it with double jointed elbows. That kind of seems to be the case, so not a huge deal, but that is something I noticed, so I did want to point that out. I did mention earlier the fingers are all fully posable. Everything on the gauntlet kind of moves very freely, which I like. In terms of the ab crunch, I mean, you could, again, just like Spider-Punk, you could basically fold them in half, actually a bit further than Spider-Punk. That's very, very impressive. The actual hip articulation, we have some ratcheted joints, some very nice ratcheted joints. You could definitely hear them on the video. I'll get this arm out of the way so you can also hear the ratcheted joints to the side. They're not quite as loud, but they are there. These are ratcheted joints to the side and to the front, which is fantastic. In terms of the actual knee joints, they are not ratcheted, but the only limitation to those knees is having it like pinch that knee pad there. Not a huge deal to me. The shoes are very posable here at the feet. You can kind of rotate them any which way that you want, up and down, side to side. A bit limited actually from the side to side rocker motion, but not a huge deal. Overall, I think this guy is actually super posable. No complaints from me. But I do want to show you one more thing. I didn't show you the head articulation. It actually moves relatively freely considering the collar is in the way, but that's because the collar is a nice fabric. It does move very freely. So overall, a very nice posing experience, and I think you'll be able to put this guy in plenty of poses. But now let's throw the Miles G. Morales in a couple poses, and then we'll close out this video and I'll share my final thoughts. So I did turn the lighting down quite a bit here so we can kind of see that lighting on the helmet in better lighting. Something I want to point out also in that back foot, because you can't rock the shoes side to side too much, it does limit the posability a little bit. As you can see, the shoes kind of hovering. You can push it harder if you want to, but again, it does have some restriction, and I don't want to push this on a copy that I'm not personally keeping, so just keep that in mind. So admittedly, I know I'm being pretty boring with the poses in this video, but I feel like there's just so many poses of him hanging off of that pipe. You guys have seen enough of that, so this is something I wanted to try that was a little bit different, kind of appealing to that Miles G. Morales side a little bit more. So you can see I have him holding the Prowler gauntlet, but also I utilize that hand that holds the spray paint can. I will say you can't really have that finger directly over the nozzle, at least on this particular copy, or the can just falls out of his hand. I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's just with this particular copy, but if I have it straight on like it's supposed to be, it just straight up falls out of his hand. So that's a bit unfortunate. But you can see kind of standing up and down here, he looks pretty dang good. I really do like this figure, guys. I want to stress that. I know I had a couple issues here and there, especially with the fact that the head sculpt was LED with batteries, but the body was LED with USB-C. It's a bit unfortunate. Also, I want to say this head sculpt really is phenomenal. Because he has that lighter skin tone and it is animated, it is kind of hard to show the details on camera, but I do think this head sculpt is beautiful. I think it looks exactly like it does on screen. I think really Hot Toys cooked so hard with this whole line. They've done such a great job, and now being the final release from this line, I'm happy to say this is personally one of my favorite Spider-Man lines ever. In terms of accuracy and actual execution of the character in a figure form, I think these figures are fantastic. But anyways, let me know what you guys think of the Miles G. Morales, aka the Prowler. Would you have preferred Uncle Aaron as the Prowler? Is this good enough for you? I know you guys probably heard the news by now, June 2027 for the final movie Beyond the Spider-Verse. So what a huge letdown. I'm going to be clenching these figures tight in my collection. Very thankful that we at least have these, and maybe Hot Toys will surprise us with one or two more randomly. You never know what they're going to do. But I'm very, very grateful to be able to take a look at this with you guys. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comments down below. See ya.